Hello, friends, and welcome to this episode of Weight Loss Winformation. And I cannot wait to discuss the topic for today. I have a really amazing woman who's written an incredible book. And when I say it's an incredible book, I mean it's an incredible book. I've only had a few authors on here because I want to have the people who are going to give you a huge bang for your buck. And this is a free podcast, so you're not putting anything into it, but you're going to get a lot out of it. So the guest today is Dr. Andrea Grayson. And I want to tell you, Dr. Grayson, we're going to talk about your title here because I think it's what I want to be if I ever grow up. So Dr. Grayson is a behavior change communication consultant. And whatever that is, I want to grow up and be it. And she currently teaches public health communications in the Master of Public Health program at the University of Vermont. Is that all correct and accurate?
That's all correct. Yeah.
Well, welcome to this podcast. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me about this title, Behavior Change Communication Consultant.
Well, there's a methodology behind public health communications that's grounded in research. So when we want to get people to do something in public health, do a behavior change, like wear your safety belt, for example, or get vaccinated, or get a mammogram, or something to improve or improve a behavior or improve your health. We can't just go out and say, do this, it's good for you, because nobody will listen. They're happy doing what they're doing. So it's a method. Public health communications is a methodology where we really connect with a target audience. So if we were trying to reach boys young men between 18 and 25 about using their safety belts, we would interview them. We would communicate. We would hold focus groups. We would understand the world from their perspective, and from there try and build messages that they could relate to, so that we could actually communicate to them and have them be more likely to change their behavior, inspire them to change their behavior, rather than coming down like, big brother, you should do this.
Yeah.
So public health communications, behavior change communications, is a methodology for connecting deeply with your audience. And
Man, I love that. I need to get more degrees. I love psychoeducation is what I call it. But what you do in your background is public health. Yes.
Public health, media. Yeah, a whole bunch of things.
I love that. I mean, that could be another whole career. I have so many careers and not many lifetimes in this one body. Anyway, I really love what you do. And it makes a lot of sense listening to you talk about the research and the focus groups, because when I read your book, which, by the way, friends, is called The Sweet Tooth Dilemma, great title also, there was so much research in there. I was like, my gosh, I have studied this in this field for a very long time. And the way you present things in the evidence-based backups that you have in this book are phenomenal. So I learned a lot. And, you also just said something interesting. I'm currently reading Sanjay Gupta's new book, and he says, don't educate by fear, and you don't do any of that in the book. And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because people certainly aren't going to listen, and they're pretty established in what they're already doing. So this book, where did it come from for you? Because, you're not a therapist. You don't work in this weight loss field.
Well, I explain my story in the book, and I'll do an abbreviated version here. As you mentioned in my introduction, I teach in the Master of Public Health program. And in 2016, I was researching a book on advertising and how it creates a culture where it creates our food culture where it's made eating cereal for breakfast normal.
Right.
And eating cereal for breakfast, as you know, is one of the worst possible things you could do for yourself metabolically. And so I was deeply into researching how how our culture has been co-opted by commercial interests. And so I was going down that rabbit hole, but I was in complete denial of my own sugar addiction.
Mm,
I was deeply embedded in the model of calories in, calories out.
right.
And so on this one particular day, I had finished my grocery shopping and I was looking for something to eat on the car ride home. Bad habit, I know, but we do it. Um, and as I was reaching for those dark chocolate peanut butter cups, I heard myself say, "Oh, you can have that. You worked out today."
I love it.
And that's something I said to myself 1,000 times before. You deserve this. What the
Yes.
heck? You've been good. All the things that justify having a treat. But because I was researching the industry, I was able to say, wait a second, that doesn't match with my goals. That doesn't match with what I know. Where is that voice coming from? And it stopped me in my tracks, literally. I stood in the middle of this aisle of the supermarket thinking, where's that voice coming from? Who's talking to me? And that's when I realized, oh, that's the sugar talking.
Yes.
And I pivoted right there to understand, all right, well, social and cultural influences aside, biologically, there's something happening where sugar is talking to me, and I want to find out what it is. So I pivoted right there and started diving into biology.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first things I learned was that in your gut is good bacteria and bad bacteria. And the good bacteria feed on fiber, and the bad bacteria feed on sugar and flour. And when those
Surprise.
bad bacteria need to be fed, they will say anything. You've been good. You deserve this. What the heck? I need a snack. They'll just say anything. And that was really the beginning of my 2-year journey to rid myself of my sugar addiction.
I love that. They're con artists. That's what they are,
They
right?
are so
Those
sneaky.
bad bacteria. And it's interesting because I've had a wonderful registered dietitian on here explaining the gut biome. And I think that is really good that we've had a little bit of that. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to this gut biome thing because it's fascinating. And the fiber thing is so critical. And I think a lot of us miss the importance on fiber. You know, there's so much focus right now on protein.
Protein and fat, yeah.
Yeah, and so we missed that fiber piece, which is really important, and it's really interesting. The podcast that comes out next week is with a speech and communications professor, much like
Mm,
yourself,
mm,
and the episode is on visual persuasion. So when you're
mm.
talking about, the way in your book, I know I'm jumping way ahead, but one of the things that really struck me was how stores like Best Buy, it's not a grocery store, right? Or the electronic stores will have aisles like you're at Disney World. You go through these checkout counters that are like a checkout or a ride funnel, and it's lined with sugar.
Totally. Totally. From the manufacturer's point of view, it was maybe 10 or 15, maybe 15 years ago, they realized, oh, these stores could be another outlet for sales. And they made deals, and the stores don't have to pay anything. The vendors come in and line it up and fill them up, and the stores get their cut and the manufacturers get their cut. And in the meantime, it creates a really toxic environment if you're trying to stay away from that stuff.
Absolutely. And again, jumping all over from your book, you talk about sugar addiction, and I talk about that a lot too. And I think that because our society is so sugar focused, so much of, and I love how you explain this in your book that, it's engineered that way. We are bombarded with all of this, and we don't know what hit us. We do
Mhm.
not know what hit us when they started to industrialize sugarcane.
Absolutely. The sweet taste is a biological design that we like, and it lights up the brain. It gives us a little hit of dopamine, and it's not just the reward and pleasure hormone dopamine is, it's the motivation hormone.
Oh,
So it
talk more
gets
about that.
Well, we all think you get a hit of dopamine from your sugary treats, from your notifications on your phone, which is true. But dopamine is also really um, integrally intertwined with motivation and reward. So we we anticipate having a treat, a cookie. We anticipate, oh, that's going to give me pleasure. But the dopamine motivates us to get up off the couch, over to the cupboard, open the door, get the cookie. So there's the link between motivation and reward is very intertwined with dopamine.
And I think what you're saying is that the dopamine starts even just thinking about these things.
Oh yeah,
It's not when you start eating it. That's the motivation. It's like, woo, just thinking about this sugary treat gets me going. And so then I'm going to go seek it, consume it, and
absolutely.
get
There's
more of that.
some fascinating research that the travel industry did that said that people actually get more dopamine from planning a vacation and longer, because you plan the vacation for 6 months, you do it in a week, and
Yes.
then it's over. And so you get actually more dopamine from planning the vacation than actually being on the vacation or remembering it.
That is really truly fascinating.
Yeah.
And I have a very strong background in addiction and recovery in terms of school education, but I did a very extended 2-year training in sexual addiction. And
Mm,
sex addiction and food addiction are the two most difficult to overcome because they are biological needs.
yes.
And they say the same thing in that. It's not the acting out always
Mm,
that for, person who has sexual addiction in whatever form, it's the contemplation
yeah.
of it. So people really need to understand. And one of the things I tell people in the weight loss process is don't get caught up in food porn. In other
Mm.
words, as you're trying to lose weight, don't spend 3 hours on the Food Network. Don't don't spend 5 hours researching recipes because you're keeping
Right.
yourself stuck in that cycle of addiction
That's right.
because of
That's
that anticipatory, the motivation, dopamine.
right.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
and actually that leads to a really important point. For a lot of the people that I work with, I mostly work with midlife women, and a lot of women love to bake. A lot of women love to watch, the Great British Baking Show.
Yes.
They've gotten so much pleasure from it, and entertainment. And to take that away is to sort of lop off an arm, a piece of their identity. And that can be really challenging for a lot of people. They need to change their identity from someone who loves food and attached to food to someone who's a healthy person.
Right.
And
It's
they don't necessarily know what those behaviors are. They haven't been acclimated to feel good going for a walk first thing in the morning, or sipping tea before having toast, or whatever. So cultivating the habits of a healthy person in the imagination, uh, in yeah, really imagining a new identity rather than, um, well, I guess in tandem with developing the skills of eating like a healthy person, is just to want that more than not wanting to be overweight, like shifting the attention to the future person rather than the past person.
And I love your use of the language there, as in identifying as a healthy person. And I think they talk a lot about that in habit formation. And,
Mm,
it's like, I am a healthy person. I'm a person who lives a healthy lifestyle. And that creates that identity, and it can separate you from an unhealthier identity. And one of the things you said in your book that I loved, and I thought, I resonate with this, and I wonder what people are going to. I bet initially a lot of people will go, yeah, right. Because you talk about finding these other things that give us pleasure. And one of the things you talk about is a lot of really great things, but the one that I think people are going to go, yeah, right. But for me, it was like, yes, yes, a drink of cool water. That is one of my favorite things. It's like, oh my God, this is great pleasure to me, is just drinking water.
Yeah, if you stop and sort of do a little meditation on it and sort of clear your mind, and it's just the right temperature, and you take your time, it can be so rewarding because biologically your body wants it. It craves
Exactly.
pure water. But we're so used to being entertained by water. Like, it needs to be bubbly, it needs to be flavored, it needs to have um, probiotics. We need to be entertained by our food when really water, in its simplest approach, is really what we crave on a biological level.
And truly refreshing and pleasant, pleasurable.
Yeah,
But, it's interesting. I love the way you use words. We want to be entertained by food. That is so interesting. Yeah. And so, yeah, and that's what the people in the industry are working hard to do. It's like, we're going to entertain you with all this food, from the packaging to the engineering of the food to all of those things.
all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the title of the book. I am fascinated by book titles. I have a list on my computer of all the book titles that I want to write, but I love this title, The Sugar Dilemma. Where'd you come up with that?
Well, I bounced around ideas for a long time. It was hard to encapsulate what I wanted to say without scaring people. One title that I contemplated, and it's still a title of a talk that I give, called "Does Sugar Have a Spell on You?"
Oh, I like that.
Because sometimes it feels like it has it's controlling you. you
What
know?
addiction does. That is what addiction does.
Yeah. But I guess for the title, I was thinking, well, we want it, but we don't want it.
It
And
is.
we want it, but it's not good for us. But we want it, and we're being controlled by it. And so I guess dilemma really encapsulated the idea that we want it and we don't want it at the same time.
Exactly, especially the more we learn about how bad sugar is for us physiologically.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, because you do an amazing job of describing that in the book.
Yeah, it affects so many different systems. The whole first third of the book is why sugar is so bad for you. The second third of the book is why it's so hard to quit, and the last part is a full 3-week protocol on how to do it. But there's no system it doesn't touch. It starts in the microbiome, creating inflammation, which affects every system in the body, including the mind, the gut-brain communication. And,
Mhm.
and so one of the things it disrupts is the hormone that satiates, the satiation hormone ghrelin. So that's why it's hard to stop once you start, like with the gummy bears or something. Like, you
Mhm.
start and then you just need to put another one and another one, another one. There's no off switch.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it really messes with your brain and the gut and the inflammation. It causes systemic inflammation after a prolonged period, creating heart disease,
Mhm.
cardiovascular disease, which is the number one killer for both men and women in the United States.
Correct.
Um, it's it ruins your mouth, and your
Yeah.
mouth. The gut bacteria in your mouth are also correlated with heart disease and other systemic diseases. The current research that's looking at insulin resistance. So, as I'm sure your listeners know, insulin resistance is one of the main reasons that leads to diabetes. Is that when you have sugar or refined carbohydrates, it increases the sugar in your blood sugar, and insulin needs to be secreted by the pancreas to tell the cells to absorb it,
Mhm.
to get that sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells. And if your cells aren't using it, it's going to store it. But the more sugar you eat, the more insulin you need to get it into your cells. So once we become insulin resistant, the more and more insulin you need, and that's pre-diabetes. And then if that goes unchecked, eventually it becomes diabetes.
That's such an interesting explanation. As you were saying that, here's what's triggering in my mind.
Mm,
That's exactly what happens with drug addiction. You
mm.
become immune to the amount, and then you need more. It's kinda like your body's like, "We need insulin," but you put all this sugar in there, and then it needs more. And I wonder if I don't know, but that just was like, God, that's how drug addiction works, you know? And it's interesting, and I think that food or sugar is being very looked at in the media, and fortunately, and the ills of it are being made widely known. And it's interesting to me because, you know, the people who promote alcohol sales, just like the people who promote sugar sales, they've done such a great job lobbying and getting themselves into that. We had that one article put out saying how bad alcohol actually is for a person's body, and then bam, that's been silenced because they make too much money off of it. And we can't be letting people know how really bad that is. And I wonder what's happening with the sugar lobbyists as people like you and me and so many other people are saying, this stuff is going to kill you.
We're trying so hard on the policy front, but there's so much resistance from the sugar lobby on the state level as well as the federal level. I know on the state level, many states have tried, even districts have tried to implement sugar taxes on soda. Actually, that's been proven to be very successful in Philadelphia, in Portland, Oregon, I think in Colorado. That when you increase the tax on sugar sweetened beverages, there's less sales. There's more sales of other things, but there's
Right.
less sales of sugar sweetened beverages, and that's the most researched correlated death march product out there. Like
For sure.
drinking soda has got to be the number one. Drinking soda and French fries are like the top two things that are
Exactly. And
bad for
when
you.
you have one, you have the other.
Right.
And
Salty sweet. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I was talking to my granddaughter about this the other day. She said something about the vending machines at school. And I was like, they're trying to do away with vending machines at school. And she knew exactly what I was saying. She's 12 years old. And she said, there's no sugar products in the vending machine. And I said, that is really good to hear. Now they've got some Powerade and some of those things, but she said it's the sugar-free, the light versions. I was like, well, I'm glad to hear that. But
Yeah.
I also talked to a woman the other day who said that I don't know if it was her or somebody in her family, was drinking so many of those energy drinks
Oof.
that they were like at a toxic level of some of those,
Mm.
whatever they put in those energy drinks. I don't know what
Mhm.
they are, but I'm like, God, that's just so dangerous.
It is, especially for young people. There are some drinks that they market specifically to young people, young athletes, young
Yes,
hipsters that really try and get them hooked young. And when the brain and body is still developing, all that stimulation is just not good for the
I
forming
know.
body.
And unfortunately, parents, A, don't do the research, and B, are just like, okay, it's at the ballpark. Here you go. Have at it. Yeah, so it's pretty darn dangerous, if you ask me. So we talked about why sugar is so bad for you. Every system, like you said, and I think that's important for listeners to understand. Like alcohol, like marijuana, although they don't want to hear that either. These things affect every single system in your body. Every single one, and not in a good way. So, what makes it so hard for people to give up the sugar? What'd you find about that?
Well, because once I realized I had a sugar addiction, which totally blew my mind that I had been blind to it. It was just like a big veil being removed from my eyes. I knew I was going to figure it out, and I knew I was going to teach other people how to do it too, because I was already a professor. So
Mm-hmm.
every time I had a craving or an urge, I would stop and say, where is this coming from? What does this feel like?
Mm-hmm.
And what I eventually there were many, many, many different urges, many different situations, but I distilled it down to 5 and later added another 2, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Okay.
There were 5 main areas that I initially called it the 5 pathways of sugar dependency.
Mm-hmm.
And those pathways are pleasure and
Right.
dopamine, which we understand, in energy fluctuations, because when you have sugar, your energy goes up and the insulin is released and your energy goes down, and then you feel low and you need another hit. And so that energy roller coaster is another pathway. And then the gut bacteria, that's the third physiological pathway.
Right.
And then there are 2 emotional ones. There's stress eating and
Absolutely.
emotional avoidance, wanting to zone out, feeling stressed and wanting to get to the bottom of the bag of cookies as quickly as possible to
Mm-hmm.
make all the feelings go away.
Exactly.
So stress and emotional avoidance is another one, and then habits and rituals. And in that category, there's just the rote habit of every day at 3 o'clock I have pretzels. There's that
Exactly.
kind of habit. But then there's also the ritual habit of like the holidays and family rituals, and feeling like if you don't make sugar cookies for Christmas,
Yes.
then you're missing out on this family tradition, and that's important to you. And so starting to detangle the emotional piece of the food and the holiday from the love and the intention,
Yes.
that's one of the hardest pieces, I think, for a lot of people who grew up with strong family traditions.
It is hard, and this is true, but kind of sad too. So my daughter and I have a program called Berry Aftercare Weight Loss Winformation, and so we did 2 1-hour videos, and we were baking healthier, no sugar holiday treats, so we could put it
Excellent.
on. No sound. We had
Oh,
sound for 20 minutes. I was like, oh my God.
oh, what a
The
bummer.
microphone we were using lost its power, and therefore we had nothing. So I was a little bummed about that. But, I get that this is a holiday tradition. We get together, we bake cookies. We'll take these recipes, make these while they're making those. Make sure you take responsibility for having what you can put into your body. I'll tell
Yeah.
you, one of the things in the book where you got me, girl, are the things we tell ourselves about sugar. And you talk about the hidden sugars, because I am that person that you very beautifully described who says, I don't eat that much sugar.
Mm.
But you describe a person who you go through, what do you eat? And it turns out you're eating a whole lot more sugar than you think you are. And I know that is me. So talk about that a little bit. The hidden sugars.
Yeah, so things, especially that are marketed as natural or healthy, or with green or farms on the package, the things that make it look like it's good for you. Like granola, for example, we think granola and yogurt, that's a healthy breakfast, healthier than eggs. You think eggs and bacon is, we think of as bad, and granola and yogurt is good. But granola is, well, first of all, the primary ingredient in granola is usually rolled oats.
Right.
And rolled oats are one of the highest, if not the highest, glycemic foods there is, meaning it spikes your blood sugar more than almost anything. So that
Mhm.
means more insulin is going to be released. So it has that going for it. And then it's made with industrially processed seed oils. And those things like canola oil and sunflower oil, all the processed oils wreak havoc on your gut.
Mhm.
And another thing about rolled oats is that even when they're actually, I think your best bet is to buy organic, because They're often tested very high with glyphosate, the industrial agriculture herbicide that is often used.
Okay.
So there's a lot of residue in commercially grown rolled oats. Okay, so that's the oats, the oil, and then the sugar and honey and maple syrup and how they sweeten it, plus often raisins and other things. So it's a sugar bomb to
Yeah.
have granola. And then if you're having it with sweetened yogurt, flavored yogurt, that
Right.
has another 4, 5, 6 teaspoons of sugar in it too. So we think we're being
Exactly.
healthy, and certainly not.
The 6 teaspoons being the max that a woman is supposed to have in a day,
That's
right?
right.
All right there in one little container of granola,
Right.
or I mean yogurt.
Yeah.
I had pneumonia last year, and a friend of mine sent me a care package, and in that care package was the Nature Valley protein granola. Well, boy, if I didn't just love that. And then I looked at the ingredients in the label, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness.
Mm.
Yes, it has some protein in it, but it's got a whole lot of not good in there for you." And I agree with I mean, I love Greek yogurt. I eat a ton of Greek yogurt, but it has 0 sugar in
The
it.
plain. Yeah, you have to have the
Mhm.
plain yogurt. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta really learn to read the labels. Unfortunately, the people that are typically my listeners, because of the education they've had prior to having surgery, not so with GLP-1s. People
Mm,
get no education usually when, you can buy it online. So it's really important that people understand that just because we think or we're eating not a lot of sugar, it doesn't mean that we're not, because it is so hidden in the foods that we eat. And the packaging, ooh, man, that just burns me sometimes. But it says it's blah, 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 blah. Turn it over, read the label, and look at the ingredients.
that's right. And and the ingredients, I mean, now there's added sugars is a line item in the ingredient label, which is super helpful. But there can also be so many different names for added sugar. There are over 50 different names for
That's
sugar.
right.
And in the commercial baking process, some of them do different things. Some of them brown, some of them bind, some of them create flavor, some of them they each do different things, but really it's just a device to get more sugar in the product. So it might not be listed as the top 2 or 3 ingredients, but it's 5, 6, 7, 8 um, in the ingredient list, and all those ingredients that end with OSE,
Right, I was just
those are
gonna
your
say
sugar.
OSCs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because even if you think you're a fairly savvy shopper or you look at the labels, if it's a word that's in Greek, I don't know what it means, right? And a lot of those ingredients might as well be Greek
Right. We don't
because I
want to be eating things we don't understand, really.
yeah, and I think our culture I want you to talk about that too, because the society and the culture are so against healthy eating in our country,
Mm,
um, that we think we're doing well, but it's the packaging and the frozen food and the processed food is so convenient and easy. And like you said, the commercials make you think that eating cereal for breakfast is the norm.
right. Exactly. The media have a huge influence in shaping what we think is good and not good, real or not real. And I grew up watching kids eating cereal for breakfast, and I thought that was a perfectly good thing to eat for breakfast because that's what you saw. Um,
Exactly. Oh, and
yeah,
they market so heavily to kids, the games on the back of the box and the toys on the inside of the box and the fighting over who gets the toy this trip and, oh, it's
yeah.
it's not good. Yeah.
And there's always been influencers. There's always been celebrity endorsements. Even Tony the Tiger was an early influencer. Uh,
That is a great that's a great thing. Ah,
but young people don't have the critical thinking to be able to say, "Oh, this person was paid to promote this drink," or and I hate to say it, but the African American community, the Latin American, the Latino population is really targeted heavily by the convenience foods and soft drink companies. And so when they engage with celebrities that are Latinx or that are African American or Haitian American,
Sure.
that's such a hero for a young person. That's a hero. That person looks like me. That person has my ancestry. That person is like me. And they're drinking something. They're drinking a soda or an energy drink. It gives it this automatic cachet that it's good for them, and I want to be like them because I have aspirations. It's really very insidious for that community, and it's very unfortunate.
It is very insidious. And speaking of insidious, you note that 74% of the food in the grocery stores have added sugar.
That's right.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, I think actually that was a backlash from the low fat, no fat 80s. I grew up in the era of fat is bad.
Yeah.
And so low fat, you could have a low fat cookie that was loaded. So a no fat cookie has no flavor, it tastes like cardboard. And so they doubled up on sugar and oil and sugars and texturizers and made all sorts of artificial things to make no fat cookies taste palatable. And the result after a decade of that is that the entire culture's palate has been acclimated towards more sweetness. So, which I should say that after just a week of no sugar, I run boot camps, which I can tell you more about later. But where I guide people through the detox period of getting through their cravings. And even just after 2 or 3 days, people's taste buds reacclimate to taste the true sweetness of foods without needing the extra stimulation of the sweetness. Right. So roasted broccoli tastes super sweet. Roasted carrots, of course, root vegetables are super sweet. And you can find pleasure and sweetness in those things that are actually good for you because you've taken away all the artificial amping up of your taste buds to make it reveal those natural flavors.
It's interesting because some of those artificial sweeteners are, what do they say, 250,000 times more sweet than sugar. It's like, well, no wonder we can't taste the sweetness in a carrot.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And one of the things that people ask me all the time is, well, what about artificial sweeteners? And, there's maybe a metabolic baby step. It could be a transition to go from sugar soda to sugar-free soda, but it really just should be seen as a stepping stone because it's keeping your taste buds primed for the sweet taste, which some of the research says that if you have an artificially sweetened soda in the morning, you've tricked your brain into thinking you got calories you didn't get. And so that creates cravings later in the day.
Correct.
So having that sweet taste amplified, especially amplified by artificial means, is really just keeping the sugar loop going. Yeah.
Yeah. So then when we grew up, it was don't have any fat. And then keto came along and said, you can have all the fat you want.
Right.
Just don't eat the carbs.
Right.
But carbs like sweet potatoes and the root vegetables. We want to have those. So let's have the fiber.
That's right.
And the vitamins and the nutrients.
That's right.
So it's not all carbs are bad.
That's right.
And the natural sugars aren't a horrible thing.
No.
Even in fruit versus fruit juice, which is nothing but sugar.
That's right. Take away the fiber, and it's and the other thing about fruit juice is that a glass of orange juice is maybe 3 oranges, and you wouldn't eat 3 oranges.
Right.
You would have 1 maybe.
Right.
Maybe. And so you're having quantity without the fiber, and it's actually, I think a 12-ounce soda has 12 grams of sugar, and a 12-ounce glass of juice has 10 of orange juice. So it's almost the same amount as having a soda.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's hear about the detox. And I want to tell you, one of the things that I really liked was how you talk about step down. do a step down instead of a. Now, abstinence may be necessary for some people, but it doesn't have to be overnight. Talk about that, your experience.
Yeah. I mean, most people, including people who are high on the addiction spectrum, and I see sugar addiction as a spectrum,
Yes, I do.
very akin to alcohol in
Mhm.
that there are plenty of people who imbibe in alcohol with bad behavior, but they're not addicted.
Correct.
And the same thing with sugar. There's plenty of people who have bad behavior, but their brains don't respond in an addictive way.
Correct.
So the higher you are on the addiction spectrum, the more likely abstinence is the only path, the only safe path.
I
Because just
agree.
like you wouldn't say to an alcoholic, oh, just have a drink once in a while, it won't hurt you. You
Yeah.
can't say that to a sugar addict because
Right.
they'll just spiral them out. Um, so where was I? Most people go into it thinking, I don't want to give up sugar forever. And so the stated goal of my programs is to get to a point where you live a sugar minimal lifestyle.
I
Where
love that word, sugar minimal.
yeah, that you have control. You're able to have it or not have it. And that's where the freedom comes in. That's where the true choice comes in. If you can look at a cookie and tune in and say, do I want that? And be
Mhm.
able to walk away without feeling anything, without getting into dialogue, but I really want it. We waste so much time and energy being in dialogue with the food. I want it, I can't have it, but it looks so good, but everybody
Mhm.
else is having it, and like I want it, but I can't
Mhm.
have it. So exhausting, so exhausting. So getting people to a safe place where they can look at it and choose
Mhm.
is really my goal in the programs. And in my experience, it takes a while to get there. It took me a couple of years to feel like I had a safe relationship with sugar where I could have a
Yeah.
cookie and it wouldn't spiral me into weeks of wanting more and more and more.
So how did you get there? How did that 2-year progression.
I did it through periods of abstinence.
Okay.
I would go a week with no added sugar and then binge on something and sometimes I would fake myself out. Oh, I just want to see what happens.
Mhm.
and I
Myself out. Yep, don't we do that?
Yeah. Um, and then that would go on for a couple of days, and then I would claw my way back out to a period of abstinence. And each time I did that, it wouldn't be for as long and it wouldn't be as deep.
Okay.
And so it was a spiral uh, that took a couple of years until I felt like, wow, I can really choose now.
Mhm. That's nice. That is a beautiful kind of freedom. And, with post-op patients, people who have surgical weight loss, they're told, some of them, by the surgeons, you will get dumping syndrome if you eat sugar. Mean they'll feel like they have the flu, they feel very nauseous, they start sweating, they feel weak, so they think, "Oh, good, I'll have weight loss surgery because then I won't be able to eat sugar."
Mm,
Well, first of all, the reality is only 40% of people experience dumping syndrome, and of those 40%, people do it anyway.
mm,
Right? Because that craving is so strong. And so I think that's something people need to be very, very cautious of is that for some people, like you said, depending where you are, like I'm a recovering addict. Sugar was not my drug of choice for sure. And sugar to me is most things aren't worth it to me as
mhm.
far as how I'm going to feel or the calories involved or you know, there's very few things that are worth it to me. So that's not a big deal. But if you're the person who says, I want all of it all the time, you might need to abstain.
Yeah. And I think that's really the opportunity for weight loss surgery people is to think not that you can eat whatever you want, but less now, but really like, okay, now without the bottomless pit,
Right.
now I can really start addressing my stress, my childhood trauma, my physiological needs for pleasure. And you can start addressing those in ways where, that's why I run detoxes, is because I run 2-week detoxes because it's a short enough period of time to get people past their cravings so you can start seeing and
Right.
addressing all those 7
There?
pathways.
What's
Yeah,
there? Yeah.
exactly.
I like that. It's like a discovery phase.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because some people absolutely do not make the connection. What the heck is going on with my camera here? They don't make the connection. I'll be back
Okay.
whenever I am. They don't make the connection between um, the sugar, the feel good, and it's preventing me from having to think about the difficult marriage or the traumatic childhood or the whatever it is. And you get rid of that, and it's like, whoa, what are these intense feelings? So I like that. So tell us about your boot camps. Tell us about your 2-week detoxes.
Yeah. So the first program I created after I figured it all out was called Breaking Free from Sugar. And that was a 5-week program, and I licensed it. It still exists. But for most people, 5 weeks, that's a steep mountain to climb. 5 weeks
Sure.
without sugar, even though we led into it of a couple of weeks of prep and whatever, just seemed too daunting for most people. So I distilled it down to a 2-week program, which the next one is running in January. It's called Fresh Start Boot Camp. And it's a 2-week program with 4 days of prep. And I provide, because you have to prep not only your pantry, but your people and your
Yeah.
snacks and your food. And there's a lot to prep when you're going to change things right away, all at once. But then there's a 10-day no added sugar challenge. And the reason why I do it that way as opposed to gradually is that if you still have gut bacteria that's needs to be fed, if you're still priming your pleasure pump with sweet tastes, if you're still doing all that, it's going to be really hard to cut back.
Mm-hmm.
So I do advocate for the cold turkey approach in short periods so that you can start healing your gut, so you can start
Mm-hmm.
regaining your taste buds, so you can start um, finding other means to have quick pleasure than just reaching for the chocolate all the time. So I run them several times a year, and I have at least half the people in each cohort is repeat people, because that's how I did it. I
That's
did it by
great.
successive periods of abstinence, and
Mhm.
yeah, they've been people with me for several years now, because
Great.
we tend to slip
Sure.
back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that we talked about, the environment and the stress and the underlying issues and all of that. So, what do you do after the boot camp? Do people stay in touch or
Yeah. So out of the boot camp, I offer a 3-month weekly coaching program,
nice?
because that's where we dig into all the stuff. That's
Yeah.
where we dig into um, the emotional piece, the stress piece, the family piece, especially this time of year. We're talking a lot about the holidays.
Mhm.
And, there's a sugar pusher in every family, and it might be the person in the group.
Yes, that's so true.
That's the role they've taken on because they make the best brownies and everybody loves them, and it gives them a sense of belonging. And so
Mhm.
we need to find other ways of relating to people and our own traditions. And as you mentioned earlier, finding alternative baking is definitely a way to do it. You can make healthy brownies, sweet potato brownies.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they use what is it they use in a lot of those brownies? Is it avocados or is it um
I've seen some with avocado, some with sweet potato.
mhm.
Yeah, I often sweeten my baking with dates.
There, you know what, those recipes that I was looking at,
Yeah.
so many dates in the
Yeah.
recipes.
Yeah. They're my go-to sugar sweetener of choice right now because they have so much fiber that they don't spike the blood sugar of some people. And there's research on with people using continuous glucose monitors that
Mhm,
some people respond
mhm,
with a spike from dates and some people don't. But
mhm.
almost all the alternative baking that uses dates also has nuts in it. And so you're
So that
getting the
would
fat
slow the.
and the protein.
Mhm.
And so it really doesn't fluctuate the blood sugar that much.
Yeah.
And they add a lovely caramelized flavor to almost anything. So
Mhm.
they're really my go-to choice to really minimize use of monk fruit and stevia, which are
Mhm.
concentrated, highly processed sweeteners.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny though. I was so aware of that. I'm like, wow. It's it's like the cottage cheese thing right now. Everybody's making. I saw a lot of really great recipes actually with cottage cheese, making like chocolate mousse and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So there are alternatives that are helpful. But the boot camp sounds like an amazing option, especially with that follow-up care.
Yeah. The I'm sure my website information will be in the show notes, but
It will.
quitsugarbootcamp.com is a place to go to get the latest.
Quitsugarbootcamp.com. And yes, it will
Yeah,
definitely be in the show notes. But I
yeah.
think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
So, what areas of the book are your favorite parts that we haven't talked about yet?
Um, well, the thing that really the cornerstone of the book is the pathways. There are 5 in the book, and then there are the 2 additional
Yes, you were going
that
to
I
talk about
discovered afterwards because the 5 all related to my own experience. I wanted pleasure. I was bored. I found discovered those reasons for wanting sugar out of my own experience.
that. Right.
But the 2 that I added after, and as I worked more and more with people who are dependent on sugar, realized that there were 2 additional pathways that account for a lot. One is a family history of addiction,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be sugar addiction, although plenty of people have diabetes in their family history. It could be addiction to cigarettes or alcohol or gambling. Because what that means, if you have a family history of addiction, it means you have a brain, may have a brain, that responds differently to stimuli.
Right. Right.
So that means you might be more prone to addiction than someone else with the same stimuli. So,
Yeah.
family history of addiction is one additional pathway. And the other pathway is little t, big T trauma.
You're speaking about, you know what? I got to interrupt you for just a second.
Sure.
I thought if people who have worked with me for a couple of years read your book, they're going to go, "Are you sure you didn't write this, Connie? Because you and I use so many of the same phrases." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I love this so much." Yeah.
Oh,
I'm like, "They're
now
gonna
I get,
think we collaborated on this book because the phraseology is exactly the same."
oh, I can't wait to read your work too.
So talk about the big T, little T trauma, which I did a podcast episode on not too long ago.
Oh, excellent.
Mhm.
Well, the big T traumas are the big childhood things like, and they've been codified into the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences list, and there are 8
10.
or 10 of them now, which include things like witnessing violence, experiencing violence, hunger, incarcerated parent,
Divorced
divorce,
parents.
yeah, many different capital T traumas that the body, a young person doesn't have the emotional capacity to process. And so that can lead to direct escape. They realize that when they're feeling stress or they hear mom and dad yell, they can hide in their room with a bag of Twizzlers and make the pain go away. So
Right.
there's that sort of direct, but there's also physiological brain pathways that are being not maturing in a healthy way
Mhm.
because of the trauma.
Absolutely.
And then the little t trauma can be something as innocuous, so to speak, as being, let's say you're in grade school and are asked to stand up and speak in front of the classroom and you blank out or you forget what you have to say or you stammer and feel shame. And and then get chided about it from your classmates or something, and somehow or that might be one scenario, or another scenario might be you were a latchkey kid. You went home after school and there was nobody home, your parents were working, and somehow you discovered the cookies,
Right.
and so you were alone and cookies filled the void. And so that's sort of like a little t trauma. Like you weren't it wasn't a violent experience, but it was a pathway that was created young,
Yes.
that became an ingrained habit. And so whenever there's any discomfort of feeling alone or isolated, the go-to way to handle it is through the sweets.
Most definitely. And
Yeah.
I love both of those descriptions, and I would agree with you that those absolutely belong in your categories. And the way I like to describe addiction to people, because when I do pre-surgical evaluations, a lot of people will say to me, my dad was an alcoholic, or my whatever it happens to be, but I'm not an addict. And so as we go through the evaluation and we find out that sugar is the big issue here, or it's the french fries, I explain, like, addiction's like an umbrella, and the each of the prongs represents a different substance or behavior, but it's all addiction. It's all
Right.
under that umbrella. And most addictions with some nuance are treated the same.
Mhm.
So addiction is addiction. And I think that's one of the most important things that people can hear, is that just because, the other family members are drugs and alcohol, which is what we tend to think, a lot of people oftentimes after surgery, and I don't know if you've noticed this in your boot camp with your participants, but do they transfer? Like, they start shopping excessively, or they start spending excessive amounts of time on the Food Network or social media or whatever it happens to be.
Well, I have worked with several people who were former alcoholics that are sober who turned to sugar,
Yes, very
because
common.
yeah, very common. I do have a couple of people I work with who have multiple addictions. They overspend, they
Mhm,
overeat,
mm,
they just have a constant need for stimulation like that.
mhm.
Um, yeah,
Whack-a-mole
so
addiction. I call
yeah,
that whack-a-mole addiction.
that's right.
And, the truth is, the research is that most people are not engaging in just one addiction at a time.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm so glad you address all of this. You've done some homework.
It it really blindsided me.
Mhm,
It really, when I realized that like, for 40 years, 50 years of being on a weight gain, weight loss roller coaster and shame and not liking my body and feeling like, "Why can't I figure this out? Why do I keep gaining weight?" Like, I was just so happy to, like, it's been the sugar all along. Like, that just blew my mind.
Isn't
I
it
just
interesting too, because people are like, "I don't wanna be an addict." But once you come to terms with, "This is a problem for me," it's the
mm,
biggest relief.
huge relief.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh my gosh, now I know how I can treat it."
That's right.
You got
There's
to
nothing,
identify
yeah,
it.
I thought there, because there's so much shame involved with not having enough willpower. But
I
when
agree.
those gut bacteria need to be fed, when you're stressed, when all you need is just, to feel good about yourself,
Mhm.
and for many people, especially in the helping professions, I work a lot with nurses and teachers who tend to reach for the self-care in the form of treats.
Yep.
Um, Once you realize that, it just opens up a doorway to really, oh, that's what's going on here. I need to find other ways for self-care. And
Abs
one of I really emphasize self-care and finding alternative forms of pleasure in my programs, because people
Mhm.
default to the chocolate or default to the cookie instead of that cool glass of water or stepping
Yeah.
outside and getting some fresh air or
Yeah.
clean sheets are so,
Oh my god, aren't they glorious? It's so true. I love me a clean sheet. In fact, my sheets are in the dryer right now.
all right. But the
That's
small pleasures, and that's how we experience pleasure, is in the body, and when you can reclaim the simple pleasures in the body, it takes a lot of power away from that narrow focused chocolate as the only form of pleasure that will make
yeah.
you
You remember that commercial about with the song about life's simple pleasures are the best? It was a pork and beans commercial, for God's sake, but it had a little jingle about life's simple pleasures are the best, and our society has gone so far. They don't even know what a simple pleasure is. You know, have you read the book Dopamine Nation?
I have, yes.
Of course. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like we're all so dang addicted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm working on another book, the subtitle of which is basically, it's still a work in progress, but it's convenience culture is killing us. Convenience
Oh,
is
I
killing us.
love that.
Yeah, because the media environment, we've been all hypnotized into thinking quicker is better. And sometimes we need quick, we're working hard and all that stuff, but we've we've forgotten how to cook, we've forgotten how to shop, we've forgotten how to we maintain our health, because convenience is held up as such a high premium, in
Right.
our lifestyles. Yeah.
You know, and it takes a lot of effort. My kids are in their late 30s, early 40s, and they have kids who are very, very, very busy and very active. And they are also, my kids, pretty health conscious. And
Mhm.
so it can be done. I mean, my daughter, um, she's got 2 jobs, 3 kids that are in 3 different sports, but she cooks and packages their meals when they go to the ball field. It's not, you know, it's too easy to go to the concession stand or whatever,
That's
but
right.
it can be done. It takes some effort, but good
Yep.
Lord, it's worth it
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I love that title about convenience is killing us. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, you are a lot of fun. I love your sense of humor. I love your research. I love the way you wrote your book. It is so informative. And so I really encourage people. And I've only done this with a few books because I only want people to read the ones that are so, so, so amazing. And this one falls into that category. So, The Sweet Tooth Dilemma. Brilliant title, brilliant information in there. I'm so glad to have met you, and I hope we can talk again.
I hope so too. I so appreciate you having this platform and sharing your knowledge,
Thank
and
you.
inviting me, into your community.
Thank you.
Really, I'm a cheerleader for the cause.
Absolutely, and I will make sure that all of that information is in the show notes, and I will let you know when this airs, probably a couple of weeks.
Great.
All right, thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
All righty, bye-bye.
Bye.